Hi everyone and welcome to another video from Hostile Territory. I hope you don't mind the change of scenery. I couldn't make the video in the bigger room for certain reasons, so I hope you don't mind the drapes and everything else and perhaps the poor lighting. Hopefully the information you get from this video will be better than the background. Now, what we're going to talk about in this video is a very serious topic, and that is long-term damage in a toxic and hostile work environment. I think that lots of people neglect this, but again, I'm speaking from experience. When you work for a long time in a toxic workplace, I worked for 12 years, there are certain things that happen to you and that are irreparable. Hopefully, if you're lucky enough, you can get out of that kind of workplace on time and avoid all of this. But if you're going to work for a longer period of time, here's what might happen to you. So stay tuned. Hostile territory. The first and most serious thing I would like to mention are health issues. If you work in a toxic and hostile workplace, the most important damage that you should avoid at any cost if possible is health issues. I've made a specific video on this topic about my experience about that and what happened to me, but I'll mention it again. When working for a prolonged period of time in a toxic workplace, you may have problems with anxiety, you may have various psychological issues, you may have problems with blood pressure, with blood sugar, with your thyroid gland, you may have problems with constant inflammations, and above all, you may have problems with constant immune deficiency. What does this mean? Your immune system, because of stress and because of constantly being tense and on the guard, your immune system will constantly be down. And you may have problems with aphthas in your mouth, you may have problems with constant inflammations and so on. This is all speaking from experience. And if you don't treat this on time, it could have some other serious consequences. Again, I will give you my example. For the first 4 years of working in my previous workplace, we had medical exams that the company paid. The first 5 years, my medical results were bulletproof. I was healthy 100%, thank God. In the last 2 or 3 years, I started having problems with my thyroid gland. Much of my blood tests and results were not that good, and so on. To this day, I have problems with inflammations in my knees. I never had problems with that. What's the worst part of all of these health issues is that most of them are, there to stay. They won't go away that easily. So if you have any possibility, again, and I cannot emphasize this enough, take care of your health. Nothing is worth your health, not any kind of money or any kind of workplace. The next problem I would like to warn about is the lack of trust. When you work in a toxic and hostile workplace, this develops as a natural kind of defense against your coworkers. You have to keep your back constantly against the wall, and every time you move your back from that wall, there is some sort of issue. But the main problem here is that overview of people starts overflowing into your private sector, so to say. It overflows to your friends, to your family, to your spouse, to relatives, to people you know well, neighbors and everything else, and you will start having a problem. I'll make an example. People that you know well approach you for some business proposal, perhaps. They need to borrow something, do something with you and everything else. And instead of you saying, no problem, okay, let's just do it, because you know the people, you know the person, you have this brief stance towards it, and you mistrust the person. If someone wants to borrow something, you don't trust them that they will return it. If someone wants to do business with you, you don't trust them that they will pay for it. If someone wants to, have some sort of gathering, you won't trust that person to behave properly. And the list goes on. But my main point here is that the mistrust from the toxic workplace will overflow into your everyday life. And this is very dangerous as it changes your whole persona. The next thing I would like to warn you about is that there will be a change in how you participate in human relations. To simplify, and I'll give you an example of my own. I used to be a so-called people's person. When I was in some sort of company, I knew how to tell a joke, I could pitch a conversation, I made people laugh and I was considered good company. That's what other people told me. After 12 years of working in a toxic workplace, I ended up being the exact opposite. I became a grumpy person, someone who didn't like to talk at all, who was silent all the time, who didn't want to express any kind of opinion, who didn't want to express any kind of feeling, God forbid, and someone someone who wanted to, just finish the whole meeting conversation and just, leave. And who likes a person like that? This is what may happen to you if you're exposed to toxicity in the long run. Whether you like it or not, your inner characteristics will change. And if you have any kind of chance, you should be very, first of all, aware of this, and you should save yourself from this as much as possible. The next side effect, which is not that important, but it was very important to me, is that a toxic workplace will simply destroy your sense of humor. Now, you may say that a sense of humor is not that important, but it is a sort of big elixir for life. Jokes, comedy, having a good time with people and everything else is sort of medicine. I see it that way. And this is how I was before I worked in that toxic workplace. Despite lots of problems previously, despite lots of life situations that weren't good, I managed to maintain my sense of humor. But working 12 years in a toxic workplace demolished it all. What it came down to is that, and this is where I saw it best, I didn't laugh anymore. And to this day, I don't laugh 5% of what I laughed before. So, this is one more big side effect that you should consider. The last dangerous thing that may happen on this list, and it is perhaps equally important as the health issue, is that you may become a toxic person yourself. Constant exposure to toxicity, and it is like with radiation, a constant exposure to toxicity may lead to you starting to get some of those characteristics. And be very careful when doing this. This starts growing on you. Okay, this doesn't come suddenly that you change overnight. And you may, in a short time, become manipulative, become narcissistic, become selfish. You may start using other people for your own gains and so on. All that I can say on this part is that you can protect yourself from this, although it is very, very hard. But be very careful with this. You have to spot it on time, and you have to make sure that it doesn't become a part of you. When it does, you're going to have a hard time getting rid of it. In the end of this video, I would just like to emphasize this one more time. The damage from a toxic and hostile workplace is real. Make no mistake about it. Do not underestimate what it can do to you. What I would recommend, if possible, is, and I mentioned this in a previous video, spend as less time as possible in that workplace. Spend as less time with your toxic coworkers as possible. Try to stay out of harm's way as much as possible, and so on. And of course, the main factor is to stay in that workplace as less as possible. Get out of there as soon as you can. After 12 years of working among those kinds of people, faced against many challenges and so on, and being at the same time forced because of life circumstances to be at that workplace, all that I can say is that it takes a ton of energy, a ton of work, a ton of consciousness for you to keep your core self intact in a toxic workplace. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. I hope this video helps. Please like and subscribe. It's a huge help for the channel. Thank you very much, and I hope this video helps.